Somebody wants in on the call, huh?
Lauren, it's Marnie. Can you hear me?
Hi, Marnie. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So did you notice there isn't a whole lot of worship time? That was an issue, just so you know.
Yeah, I saw that. It's hard. There's not a whole lot of time in general, so.
I think they're going to do things early in the morning and people can choose to go to a spiritual thing. So I don't think our conversation was totally lost.
Oh, that's
It appeared, I'll quit when somebody else comes on. It appears that the committee felt there were too many different versions that could come up with any kind of service. So we're going to be doing something where people can choose. So.
Well, so far, I guess we'll see what this group thinks, but so far the groups have been really excited about doing ritual around remembrance of folks. So I think that that'll be a really powerful kind of worship experience.
Can we ask you how many registrants we have? Are the numbers coming up a little?
Not so much yet. So we've had a few extra regular registrants, but mostly we have staff and invited guests registered so far.
I think we've got to wait for people's annual meeting.
Marnie, you broke up for a second there.
You know, where they're together and can get excited about coming. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, you went up for a second, but then it caught up, so I agree.
Hello.
Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Hi.
I'm okay. How are you?
Good.
Is Mark coming, we assume?
I assume so.
We hope so.
This is Warriors Celebration Day in the Bay Area.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, all the TV channels were showing the Warriors parade this morning. There are 1.5 million people in the streets of Oakland.
Oh my, wow. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
There's Mark.
There it is.
6.
Deborah, you're drinking something green.
Yeah, I was looking at that too.
What is that?
Green glass full of water or vodka. Up to you.
Oh, it's a green.
That's funny.
Hello, everybody.
There's when you start drinking water at 7 a.m.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
This is Troy.
Hi.
Hey,
Hello,
Troy.
How are you doing?
Great.
I heard vodka.
Yes.
Yesterday was National
Good,
Bourbon.
Troy.
I'm a beer drinker, and I like beer's
Good.
my drink of choice.
Me too, Deborah. We can get a beer at the conference together then.
First one's on me.
Good. Is this Irene? Is Irene on the call?
Yes, it's me. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Irene.
Hello.
Well, hello, Irene.
And the 213, is that Nikki? Okay. So.
Oh, that's me, probably 213.
Oh, that is you. I'm sorry. That is you, Troy. My goof. 804. Someone else just dialed on. So.
This is
Marco.
Marco, hello there. So excellent, folks. For those of you who are on the phone, on video, we've got Marnie Warner. I'm Mark Bowman, Lauren Bennett, Judith Ray, Deborah Peavy, Rick Nixon, Renee McCoy. And wow, you folks are amazing. I think Justin Tanis is the only person not here. I was just on another conference call with him and he was heading off to another one. So, but this group may have set a record for the quickest group to get online. Thank you, folks.
Hello.
You are good. So Justin, I'm sure will join us, but let's proceed because we want to sort of keep this to an hour. I want to thank you for this opportunity. First, thank you for participating in this historic event, Rolling the Stone Away, that's coming up. Justin just popped in, and we're in the process. We've got 45 elder saints prophets from around the U.S. participating in this event. We're so pleased you're all coming. And now we're trying to figure out what to do with all of you once we get together. And so we figured out one of the best ways to do that would be to confer with you. So this conference call is a bit getting to know each other, but mostly we want to focus on what you see yourself bringing and what you see us doing when we gather together at St. Louis at the end of October. So really to encourage that. Lauren, Rick, Judith, and I are facilitating the call, and I'm just starting out, and we're just going to begin with some brief introductions so we can all see and hear who is here. And would ask you to just say your name, your personal pronouns, where your geographical location, and then give us a bit of your historical connection in 30 seconds or less. Sorry, but we've got a lot of folks here. And I'm going to call out names going around on my screen here, so we'll just do it that way. And I'll start. I'm Mark Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I've been in Chicago for the last 20 years. And my roots were with United Methodism and Affirmation, and then that grew into the Reconciling Congregation program. And for the last 15 years, I've been doing this history work as part of the LGBT Religious Archives Network at the Center at PSR. And so Marnie, introduce yourself.
I'm Marnie Warner. I'm in Boston. My pronouns are she, her, whatever. And I come from the United Church of Christ, and I'm one of the 4 people who helped write Open and Affirming, and the person who actually saw it through at General Synod in 1985.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Rick Mixon.
Usually not early. My screen says Randall, but that's my father. I'm Rick. I'm the pastor of the First Baptist Church in Palo Alto, California. I came out publicly in 1973 as part of the movement in the Baptist Church for, well, I still am as a member of the AWAB board. And as far as I know, I was the first openly gay Baptist ordained.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rick. Renee McCoy.
I'm Renee McCoy. I'm in Seattle. Pronouns, her, she. I answer anything, really. Well, I've been around since I started in MCC in 1976, ordained in 1981. Did work with MCC for a long time, just retired as MCC clergy. I pastored a church in UCC church in Bellevue for the last couple years as an interim. I'm not doing that. I'm just retired from everything. But I started the first African-American LGBT church in Harlem in 1981, Harlem Metropolitan Community Church. Been doing HIV and AIDS stuff. I'm an anthropologist as well. I have a doctorate in anthropology, taught at UW, University of Washington, Wayne State University, all over the place. But just driven by a passion to bring God's word of acceptance and celebration to LGBT people of color. And that's been my life work. I started a church called Full Truth Fellowship of Christ Church in Detroit, Michigan, which is still going on. At one point, it was part of Unity Fellowship, but it's been pretty independent all along. But it's it'll be 29 years old in September of this year. Still focused on people of color and African American LGBT persons. My big passion is HIV and AIDS and health issues. I'm surviving pancreatic cancer myself, so it's about health.
Mm.
Philanthropy.
Yep. Thank you, Renee. Thank you. Irene Monroe. You with us, Irene? Maybe she had to get off the phone for a minute. We'll go back. Marco?
Hi, I'm Marco Grimaldo, and I'm based in Washington, D.C. My pronouns are he, him, and his. Historically, I guess my connections to much of this work have been my time with the Presbyterian AIDS Network and with More Light Presbyterians. That was some years ago. Some of those relationships continue. Today, I work with Bread for the World again. It's been a big part of my career, especially engaging Latinos in advocacy for hungry people. Maybe that's enough for now.
Good. Thank you, Marco. Irene, I think your phone is muted. Can you try?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
you're
it.
absolutely right. Can you hear me now? I
Now
hope
we
so.
hear you. Thank you, dear.
Okay. Okay. Irene Monroe. I'm here in Cambridge. I go by the pronouns of she, her, and hers. Where do I begin? Let me tell you what I'm doing now. I do a weekly segment on Boston Public Radio called All Revved Up, and will soon be on National Public Radio. My dying passion has always been trying to do a kind of public theology because of the way in which church has changed over the years and demographic groups leaving the church and stuff. I'm one of the founding members of the National Black Justice Coalition, one of the founding members of Equal Partners of Faith, the Religious Coalition of Freedom to Marry, Clout, which was Christian lesbians out, just blah, 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 blah. And that's it. And I'm still a syndicated religion columnist, so I appear in a number of not only LGBT, but progressive magazines and websites across the country.
Yes,
Okay.
lots of history, Irene. Yes, I think Nikki Valdez is with us.
Yes, that's correct. My name is Nikki Valdez. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and I belong, or I'm a member of Dignity San Antonio or Dignity USA, and I am one of the founders of the organization here in San Antonio. Is that good enough?
You are good. Thank you so much. Troy. Troy comes next on my screen. Troy Perry.
Okay. My name is Troy Perry. I'm located in Los Angeles, and I'm the founder of the Metropolitan Community Churches. And my passion continues to be outreach into the religious communities of the world. And I am very thankful that I'm still alive at age 77, and I retired as the moderator for our denomination 12 years ago, but it just doesn't stop. It doesn't seem like. I try to tell people I really am retired, but things keep happening. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Troy. You're good. Deborah Peavy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Peavy, and I live, my pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I live in Surprise, Arizona. And I know, all my family says, I am surprised you live in Arizona. And my history is I came to the Christian Church Disciples of Christ when I was a student at Berkeley, one of the only people to go to church when you went to Berkeley in the late 70s. And I was ordained out in the Disciples in 1981 and know Judy from way back when, and have worked at the intersection of LGBT inclusion and faith organizing, been faith director against Prop 8 in California, and in support of the marriage equality ballot initiative up in Washington State in 2012. I moved up from Arizona up there for 5 months, and I've had this sort of unique intersection of talking ecumenically and beyond the Christian community to faith leaders about including LGBT folks in both the public square and in the faith communities. And I just retired in December. So my new passion is learning how to be retired. And I'm taken to it. I'm taken right to it. Did we lose Mark?
Mark, you're on mute.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, I forgot I muted myself. I forgot. My apologies. Judith, introduce. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm Judith Ray. And, my pronouns are she or hers. I'm in Indianapolis. Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Founders of Alliance and within the Disciples. And later, and help to move.
Judith, your screen is frozen and you're breaking up. Maybe you should try and make
Right.
Yeah, we're not hearing you, Judith. So you're frozen and you're not streaming. You might try connecting again.
Okay, go out and come back in.
Okay, good. Justin Tanis. Justin.
You're muted. There you go.
Yep, there you go. It's nice to see so many familiar folks on the call. So I'm Justin Tanis. I'm the managing director at the Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies in Religion at Pacific School of Religion. And I'm on the steering committee. I'm from Berkeley for another month, and then I'll be moving to Tucson, Arizona.
What?
Yes. I'll have to visit Deborah.
Surprise.
First ordained in 1990, and now I'm with the United Church of Christ. And I guess historically, I wrote one of the early books on transgender theology about 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Lauren Bennett.
Hello, I'm Lauren Bennett. I'm one of the staff members, and I am grateful and in debt to all of you for the work that you've done. I get to work for metropolitan community churches during our conferences and events, and I'm so grateful for MCC. I'm also in care working on my ordination process with MCC, so I'm grateful to be able to be out from the very beginning of my ministry. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be on this team and on this call.
Yeah, good. As a reminder, I've indicated Lauren and I are part of the staff of Rolling the Stone Away. Judith, Rick, Justin, and Marnie are on the planning team. So we are mostly listening to the rest of you, but we will dive in from time to time. But sort of like just, we sort of want to move on. But before we do that, if those of you would like to share, what would you like to be remembered for? What would you like to be remembered for? Some of you have alluded to that, but I'm not going to call out names. If you just want to say briefly what you would like to be remembered for. Anyone?
I'll say something. I'd like to be remembered for standing up and being counted when it counted.
Good. Thank you, Deborah. Someone else, what would you like to be remembered for?
I'd like to be remembered for being faithful and fearless.
Good. Yes. Someone else.
I'd like to be remembered for empowering other LGBT people of color.
Yeah. Thank you. And actually, just a process reminder, since some folks are on phones and can't see, if you would say your name before you answer, that just helps the folks on the phone. That was Renee, if you didn't realize who that was. So someone else, what would you like to be remembered for?
This is Nikki. I did not answer the number 2 question about where my energy and passion came from. And I would just like to say that it came from being a marginalized and minority person from the very beginning, a woman or a girl, and Latina, and then lesbian.
Mhm.
And I think I get my energy from that because I feel like I need to speak up for myself and others.
Mhm.
And what I'd like to be remembered for is exactly that,
Mhm.
the fact that I can help others find their voice.
Mhm. Yes. Amen. Thank you. Someone
Hi,
else.
this is Irene. Hi, this is Irene. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello? Oh, okay, great. Well, what I like to be remembered for is thanking the bridges that have certainly carried me across. Two of them, and I think that I've been a bridge or a shoulder for some folks, but two of them are on the phone, and I'm delighted. That's Troy, and Renee may not remember me back in the day in New York City. Yeah,
I do too, Renee.
Okay,
Irene.
doing a dance of "Go Away Closer" with being gay, being openly gay, and
Yes.
I used to go down to MCC where Jim, who's now up here, Jim Matulski and Karen and Pat, but it was something about Renee opening up that branch that I could relate to because the liturgy spoke to me. The people who were struggling like I was to come out spoke to me. So I want to be remembered that I certainly thank those folks who have been bridges for me.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Marco, you want to jump in here? Would you like to be remembered for?
Sure. You know, I've been thinking about this since you sent around the question. I think lately I've just really found myself working with evangelical and Pentecostal Latinos who, you know, I just find myself being an out gay man, an out gay Latino in those circles it engenders conversations I've never had before. And that may be something that's worth remembering.
Yeah. Good.
Marco, I want to talk to you when I get to the conference.
Well, that's a perfect segue, Troy, because I was going to say we could sit here and talk for 2 hours, but we will have 24 hours together among ourselves when we arrive in St. Louis.
That's right.
Before the full conference opens, so we'll have lots of conversation time. One of the treats of getting together. So we'd like to sort of shift here and start thinking and talking about the conference. And Judith, yes.
Personally, I would just like to be remembered. Do we want to have the opening prayer?
Thank you. I totally forgot that. Why don't you do that, and then we'll transition to Judith.
Okay.
Sorry, Rick.
That's all right. Spirit of truth and beauty, spirit of peace and justice, spirit of compassion and grace, draw us ever closer into your eternal presence as we see what it means for us to have provided some measure of leadership for LGBTQIA people in your church, and help us to look to the future as we remember our past, we celebrate our victories, we mourn our losses, and we seek to be faithful to you. In your many names we pray. Amen.
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 Amen. Yes.
Amen. Thank you. So this is Judith Ray. Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Oh, shoot.
I don't.
You went away again.
You started out okay, and then it got lost, Judith. You froze again.
Okay, what to do about that? Am I still frozen?
You're okay right now. Talk for a bit. Keep talking and see what happens.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking. So first, I do want to draw your attention to the fact that we do have 24 hours as the sort of leadership and invited team to start with, sort of a pre-conference, and then we have an outline of the conference to go. Are there any general questions on the schedule as you have it in front of you? Anyone?
I have one. This is Troy.
Yes.
On session 2, the right of remembrance, are we to bring names or send names to y'all, or how are you doing that, or it's just a general right of remembrance? Either way is fine, but I just don't want to be caught later if
Thank you for that's a very good question. And I think the answer is before the conference happens, we will be asking for names, but we don't
Okay.
know right now.
Right. Okay, great.
Okay. Any other general questions?
Yeah, I have one about time. What time do days begin? I mean, if stuff is over at 8:30 at night, we're old.
We are.
I ain't been up at 8:30. What time do we start?
Generally, breakfast is from 7 to 8:30 in the morning.
So you got us old ass people up here from 7:30 in the morning to 8:30. Is there nap time in there?
Well, actually, we're giving some long times for lunch, and there will be some opportunities for you to take a break. Yes.
And we won't be taking attendance.
That's the answer, Renee, right there.
I'm gonna just tweet. I'll just tweet mine in like 45.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a really good question, and something we need to remember, because most of us are challenged with managing our energy these days. Beyond that, looking at this program outline, what excites you about this? What topics or kinds of sessions really need attention? Really be glad to hear from each one of you.
This is Troy again. All of the topics excite me. I think y'all have done a great job of coming up with all kind of topics. And I love that you've got in there tensions between religious and secular activists, the impact of AIDS, engaging the religious right next days. I'm just giving you some that jump out at me. And shifting perspectives on marriage and the role of sex in shaping and driving the movement. I'm excited by those. I mark those 5.
Okay. Thank you very much. Cheers. I'm not hearing a lot of excitement. Perhaps you might comment on, is there something you might add? And specifically, we are looking for where you see your gifts and growth perhaps fitting most closely with the current agenda of the conference. So where do you see yourself participating or contributing? So any of those questions, whether what's missing, what you might add, or where you might like to specifically participate or be interested in participating.
Hey,
Okay, this is Irene again. Hi.
Yes,
this is
hi.
Hi. So I love the format of it. My favorite sections here is certainly where it says lunch break, because that'll be my next stuff. But what I would like just for us to think about a little bit. So up here, I just want to tell you what's happened up here in terms of liberal and progressive theological education. So EDS had its last commencement service this May, as did Andover Newton Theological Seminary. I say that to say that because some of the professors I had, like Carter Haywood and Bev Harrison,
really shaped my sort of queer activism and theology. And so I guess the question I'm asking is, where do we go from here when a lot of the progressive and liberal schools of theology and seminaries that allowed someone like me in because I couldn't get into Howard School of Theology for being openly gay. I mean,
Right.
you know, how do we keep, I guess, how do we do that, and how do we keep not only our scholarship alive, but our voices alive while this seems to be happening?
Thank you. Important question.
And this is Marnie. I'm wondering if that's a good point to put under session 8, which is our going into the future kind of session, the academic theological perspective, because to be honest, I don't think we talked about it as succinctly as Irene's brought it up.
Thank you.
Hey, Judith, this is Deborah, and
Deborah.
I have a question about how y'all like dreamed this into being, because I think that would help me have a fuller sense of a context to know what it is I might bring to that or what I think might be missing.
Okay, thank you for that question. Mark, will you speak to that briefly, please?
Sure. Just, you know, we're kind of, you know, obviously part, if you sort of look at the goals, we're doing 3 different things. We're trying to bring all of us together and talk about preserving our history, because we have stories, and frankly, we're not all going to be around a lot longer. And it's really important that I often say that, you know, that we collectively have had a profound impact upon religious and social institutions in our country in the past 50 years, perhaps more impact than most any other movement in terms of all the impact we've had. So we've got to remember those stories. So that's part of why we're together. But then, of course, what does this mean? How do we reflect on that? What does it mean for today? Sort of what Irene was getting into. So how do we take the wisdom that we have and shape that into, and reflect on that to empower folks today? And then this event provides an opportunity to give, because we are together, we have the opportunity to give public visibility to LGBT Christian movements a lot more than any of us can by ourselves. So those are a lot of things to do. And then how do we do all that in less than 48 hours? Ha, 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 ha. And so we'd like all of you, we want to, you know, recognize all of you in some kind of ways. So we have a mixture of plenary sessions where there would be a few presenters and people engaging in dialogue, and then some, but then we would have some time to there would be simultaneous panels addressing some particular topics. All of us will be video recorded. Everything is video recorded for posterity. And so it's just, frankly, what you have is not final. It's getting there, but we've got great input from the 4 calls last week. You know, a few of the comments in last week are we've got to ensure that we hear younger voices. We have to invite some of the current movement leaders today have got to be engaged in this. That was said loud and clear, and we heard that. There was also some thought about everything we do should be relevant today. So it's not like we talk about the past and later we say what that means for today. But every place in the program, as we're reflecting on what's happened, we should be thinking about how we relate that to what happens today. So does that help you? This is still developing, Deborah. So we're expecting more wisdom from you folks in the calls later today and tomorrow. So it's just very helpful to hear from you.
Thank you. Very helpful for me. Appreciate it.
This is Renee. I guess my concern is that we certainly are talking about the impact of HIV and AIDS, but I find that I would like to see us begin to have some dialogue about how our spiritual health and our physical health come together, and how our spiritual health, the role of our spiritual health in enhancing our physical health. I mean, a lot of us are dealing with, old age and the
That's right.
the health that comes, the health challenges that come with that. And I know in my own personal life, had it not been for the spiritual network of people across denominations, I would not be as healthy as I am today. But how do we develop a kind of spiritual wellness that we invite God into all aspects of our lives? And AIDS certainly set us on that course, but how do we take it forward? And the second thing is, how do we use this conference as a tool for effective networking on a national level, on a local level, on a regional level? What happens the day after this conference ends, and how can we, how do we know how to use what we know to do something more? If that
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Others.
I've
This is
been
Marco.
thinking about. Oh, go ahead, Marco.
I can wait. Go ahead.
This is Deborah. I've been talking to some other older folk in the movement. Candy Holmes comes particularly to mind, and about this role that some of us who are older, and let me expand it to be non-gender specific, about what is our role as elders in this movement. I've been thinking about it particularly as a grandmother in the movement, because I feel like 2 more generations have come after me. And we live through a particular time, lots of particularities in our time, the gay and lesbian movement coming together because of AIDS, each of us in our own right in the denominations that we had to deal with in order to get ordained, and a very different culture than we live in now. And what wisdom? I guess I'm asking a question, and I think it would be cool to have a panel or at least some kind of conversation about what wisdom do we bring that the movement needs in these days, when it started out as gay, and then it became gay and lesbian, and now it's a whole alphabet, which I embrace and am glad. But for every one of those divisions, I feel like we who are older have some wisdom to say, yes, each of these identities is absolutely essential, but we also have to be tending to what holds us together. And so that's something I would be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. I find that
So this is Marco.
Yes, Marco.
And I was looking through the various topics, and I really do enjoy the way they come together. One, just the question was sort of out of your experience, what might speak to you? And one thing I was thinking about was most of my career has been sort of at this intersection of religion and politics. Big part of that, work. And so the topic that came to my mind, and I don't know how this fits, it could even be split up in different ways throughout the program, but it's about moral leadership. I can't tell you how many times when I talk to conservative religious people, they tell me that we are without morals or do not have values. Now, I'll concede that my values are different than theirs. And I would even suggest that that there's been true moral leadership in the LGBTQ community in ways that have benefited our country as a whole, that benefit even conservative churches when we think about the ways that we lift up values. And I'd love to have a conversation about that, not only in terms of the past and how our activism has really held up really important values about family and what family looks like, but then also how we might see that differently going forward. And I'd love to hear young people talk a little bit about their hopes and dreams for the values that are important to them.
Thank you.
This is Renee. I got one more, and that's how do we, where do we fit in the context of globalization? We're bigger than this country, and how do we make those kinds of global connections as global citizens?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.
This is Marty, and I'm part of the planning committee. Just so you know, at one point we batted around the idea of coming up with a statement from the group as a whole, and we realized we don't want to get into bureaucratic having to go back and get approval for it. But as we talk about this, do you think it'd be worth it to try to come up with some statement about that we could only speak for ourselves as those attendees? It would be probably a lot of quote unquote bureaucratic work, and so we sort of sidelined it, but I just want to bring it up in terms of what you're saying. Keep it sidelined or bring it back to the middle burner and say, maybe, don't know.
So I want to get some clarity on a question, Marty. Are you talking about actual statement that we
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, you're getting chopped up again, Judith. So
okay, someone else take over.
Now you're okay. Now you're okay.
Now you're okay.
Go again.
Yeah.
Go again.
Okay, try one more time.
You got it.
I was asking Marnie if she's asking or suggesting that we might have as one goal to actually come up with a statement of some kind to broadcast that comes out of this conference. Is that part of what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm asking, and I don't want to take too much time and energy, but if it's something that would be good to address, historically, this is who we've been, these are our values, this is what we see. I'm not framing it, but I don't want to spend a lot of time doing it, but it might be worth it. I just want feedback. Is it even worth it as an outcome? Yes, you got me correct.
Thank you. So the question is on the table if anyone wants to respond to that, as well as anything else about where you see yourself participating or what you might add.
And we really haven't heard from Nikki talking in this part of the conversation. If Nikki would like to share something about how you see yourself participating.
Yeah. First of all, I think what's most exciting about this to me is being among all of you. I'm not very well versed in theology or any of those subjects that you all are very aware of, but I know I will learn a lot, and I'll be happy to be among you. And where I see myself participating the best is in session 3 in the 60s and 70s. And I know I could contribute something to that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good.
Excellent. Thank you. Troy, I don't have many notes about what you've said about this either.
I agree. Was it you, Renee, who just said about globalization?
That's me, Troy.
I'm sorry, whoever. Yes, I totally agree. I've just come back from Cuba, and I have, since I've retired, really traveled all over the world. And it's been an amazing journey out there and how we can help other people. And there is we live in a day where in talking just about Cuba, with the embargo still going on, which to me is just after you go, it took me to go to Cuba to finally get my head around it. I mean, to honestly see what we're doing to that little country is just beyond me as a nation. And in the middle of, and I know nobody wants to talk about our politics, and I don't want to get into that, but we live in some very unusual times. When many of us thought we'd be way beyond where we are now. And so for me, talking about globalization, I'm all for it, Renee. I want to tell you that. And Irene Monroe, just to say this to you, and then I'll stop. I want to talk to you when I get there, because your name came up in Cuba in a very good way, and I'll tell you all about it once I get there. Okay?
Okay, but I want a hug too.
Okay, you'll get all of that too. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm expecting lots of hugs personally.
That's right. From all of us, yeah.
So
Renee, too, I want to say getting older, that's the part of it I sort of never planned on. And I'm with you when you talk about health and what that means and our network with spirituality. But young people, that interests me too. What we're saying, I assume we're going to have, we've invited people, Mark, you could tell us this, or somebody could, about some of our youth that'll be there.
Well, I think we will be talking, at least noting some of that a little later. So before we get away
okay. All right.
Before we get away from this conference, the conference reflections, wondering if there's anyone else you might recommend to be an invited guest or presenter that we don't have on our list.
I'm sorry, but I don't have that list in front of me. And I'm not sure. I wonder, could you send it to me so I could go over the list again? Because when it was first talked about, it was elders that I sort of got my head around who's going to be there. But I don't know about everybody else. So I'm sorry.
There's really not everybody. You haven't missed anything, Troy. We're expanding the list now. We invited a group of elders. We invited a group of elders to get us started. To get credibility, we needed to have a diverse group of elders to start out with. Now's the time to expand that. So if you have suggestions, either among elders who you think have an important perspective, or current up-and-coming brightest and best folks that you think we need to invite, we welcome all of that.
Okay.
Well, while you're thinking about someone else that you might recommend, we do invite email comments. If you think of anything else, any other answers or suggestions or names in the next few days, please feel free to send an email to Mark with that information, and we'll make sure that that gets included. So that
great.
I don't know about you, but it doesn't always come at the same time to me when I'm trying to remember.
Right. No, same here.
Okay, so I think we will move on to a few comments about logistics. And Lauren, are you going to lead us in that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Excellent.
This has been great. So a few things as we prepare for our time together. One is that Eden Theological Seminary is going to offer a bookstore for us. So if you have any books that you've published that you would like to be available at this bookstore, please send Mark the titles of your book or an article that you have in print or things like that that we can get in the bookstore. We're planning on doing some fun activities with some older photographs. So if you have a picture of yourself in early activism, some of your early advocacy, or some early pictures of you, we would love to see those with descriptions. They don't necessarily have to be just of you, but of some of your colleagues and some of the folks that you've worked with. Maybe some folks who have passed on that you want to be remembered. Any of those, we would love to see those, including if you have any childhood pictures that you'd like to share. If you could also send those to Mark. And if you need any help with scanning some of those pictures or anything like that, you can let us know and we'll try to hook you up with someone in your area. Just a reminder, with your invitation, if you're one of our invited guests, your travel is a part of your invitation. Some of you have already chosen to offer that as a gift to the conference, and we thank you for that generosity. And if we are booking your travel, we will be contacting you shortly to find out all of your information, your travel dates, everything that one would need to know to book travel. And if you did not upgrade to get a single room and you do not have a spouse coming, that means you're getting a roommate. So if you'd like to tell us who you want your roommate to be, that would be great, and we will try our best to accommodate that desire. If you have a spouse coming and you haven't let us know yet, please let us know so we can make sure that that person is taken care of. If you're on Facebook or connected to people on Facebook, please invite them, and you yourself go on to the Rolling the Stone Away page and like us on Facebook. All of you will be featured as an invited guest at some point between now and October. So we invite you to look for that, look for your friends who are being shared out, and share with your friends. And lastly, all of you obviously are a part of organizations who ought to be at this conference. And so we really need your help to get the word out. This is a unique conference in a lot of ways. And one of the ways is that the sponsoring organization is really all of our conglomerate organizations. So we don't necessarily have a central mailing list or anything like that. And so we are relying on the relationships that we all have in order to get the word out on this conference. So we would love to know who you're connected with. If you have any ideas on people who should be in the expo area at this conference, anything like that. So that is a really helpful piece of information as we go forth in planning. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Troy.
Lauren, I just wanted to ask you, do you have, like, Facebook, I am a public figure on Facebook. I don't have friends, but I have about 40,000 people who follow my page. And I wonder, can I get something maybe that I can have Mark, the person who posts things for me, where I can post it on there, something, you know, about the conference. If you can send me something, and you have my address, Lauren,
sure.
I would really appreciate it, and I'll get it to Mark, of where it'll take them to your website. In other words, the website for the conference. Okay?
Thank you, Troy. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm happy to do that for anyone else too. If you have a fan page, not a personal page, I'm happy to share information with you, or to whomever might be in charge of your page. So that's great. Any other questions or comments? Or Mark, did I forget anything and you want to jump in? Or okay. Well, wonderful. If you think of anything, you can email Mark or I. Our emails you have, we were copied in the email, and you've been corresponding with Mark anyway. So at this time, we're going to move into a closing prayer then, if there isn't anything else for the good of the order. So Rick, I pass it off to you.
Yeah, this is just such an amazing experience. This is the fifth one of these that Judith and Lauren and I have been privileged to be part of, and it just gets richer by the conference call. We thank you so much for your input. The input today has been particularly useful. The dilemma is, you know, that Mark, in his inimitable fashion, had this seed sprout in his creative imagination that we ought to do this, and he pulled some people together, and we've been working on this process for a while. Now we have all of your great input, and as somebody said in an earlier call, this is at least a month-long conference, and that will allow us to sleep in too, Renee, if we took a month. But unfortunately, we only have about 64 hours together, so we will do our best to incorporate all of the really good input that you've given us. We're so grateful for you and for participation.
Rick, before you pray, I want to thank Mark too. I love history, and I think this is the reason I said yes right off the bat. Was I have this thing about history, remembering our history. And I'm just very thankful, Mark, when your book came out and I read it, you were, very good in there about remembering religion. And I really appreciate that and the work y'all have done. So I just want to say that.
So actually, if I can lead us in a closing prayer, but if somebody else would like to, I'll give you the opportunity. Okay, I'll do it. And thank you, God, for our heroes and our sheroes.
Yes, God.
The workers in the field, the people on whose shoulders we stand, the bridges across whom we walked. As we remember our own legacy and our own history, help us not to forget the people that came before us, to whom we owe great debts of gratitude. And help us never to forget that there is a future and that it's in your hands, and that in this process we give it to a new generation, but we also give it over to you in faithfulness. Again, we thank you for all that you mean to us. In your many names we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. We will stay in touch.
Thank
You'll hear from
you,
us again
everybody.
soon.
Thank you.
Good.
And Renee, everybody, I'll see you when we get there, all right?
Yes, yes,
There's a
yes.
party over there.
Yes. Now she's talking
Bye-bye.
about Renee's partying now. Okay. We hear you.
That's in the evening.
Before 8 o'clock.
Oh, before. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Bye, folks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.